Hey, everybody. I'm so excited. It's Naomi Wolf, CEO of Daily Cloud, and I'm here with Skyler Johnson, who is running for state senate. He grew up on Long Island. He's running for state senate in the state of New York. And welcome, Skyler. We're so excited to have you on Daily Cloud.
Hi, Naomi. It's so good to be here. Thanks for having me.
My pleasure. So I was really struck when your campaign crossed my social media feed because, we're always telling people to just run for office. And I don't think the fact that you're 19 is the most important thing about you. As I said before we began, I know 19-year-olds, and I'm perfectly willing to believe that they're, better equipped than anyone else because the problems they're inheriting, they're stuck with them for most of their lives, and they know, what needs to be done in ways that older people sometimes don't. But I do want to know what your background is in terms of politics and what led you to decide to run for state senate.
Absolutely. So my family is from Long Island. My grandparents actually moved to the town I currently live in the 60s, and we've lived here ever since.
Mhm.
I decided to run.
Is that Skyler? Sorry to interrupt.
No, not at all. So it's the town of Mount Sinai. It's a small town. It's a small town towards the east of Long Island.
Mhm.
So there were a couple things that led me here. Last year, I managed a town council race in my district, and I saw a lot of the issues that we were facing on both town and went to both townwide levels, on statewide levels, and on federal levels, and I realized I could do something about it. There were a couple things that specifically motivated me to run. One of them was when the incumbent, who is now retiring, voted against LGBTQ rights. A bill went on the Senate floor to ban gay conversion therapy in New York State. He was one of 4 state senators to vote no on it. 59 state senators voted yes, and he voted no. It was a common sense bill. It was not even controversial, and he showed that he was out of touch with the times and did not vote yes on the bill.
Do you think he understood what conversion therapy is, Skyler?
I think that he understood what conversion therapy is. I don't think he understood the struggles of the LGBT community. I think that he was elected in 1976, and I believe that he still has held to his views from then. I don't think that he has changed with the times at all. So
I'm so interested in that example because surely in any reasonable town in Long Island, even very traditional people, if they know about conversion therapy, very few people are going to support that these days. Whatever his personal views, I'm surprised he'd burn up that much political capital for something that's not even, popular with his constituents.
So that was part of the problem, and that's what I wanted. That's what I saw. He had become so ingrained in our community. He had become so sure of himself that he felt he could do whatever he wanted. He felt that he could vote on any bill without getting any political ramifications. That wasn't the case this time. He actually has a stadium named after him in our local college. It's called Stony Brook University. It's one of the biggest colleges on Long Island.
Yeah, I used to live at Stony Brook, so I know it well.
Yes. Did?
Yeah.
So yes. So he has Ken LaValle Stadium at Stony Brook University.
That giant stadium?
Yes.
Oh my gosh. Okay.
The students at the school protested to try to get his name removed. So it showed that people were going to fight back, and that was encouraging. So between that and between watching the struggles of my other students, specifically, I was sitting in a class on climate change, nonetheless, and a peer of mine was falling asleep. I found out he'd been working 60-hour weeks to try to pay his tuition and afford to eat. So that was a major motivator for me to run, because I realized that my generation was suffering on the island, and that if I ran, I could put forward policies that would really benefit both my generation, older generations, and future generations to come.
Well put. I mean, we are not partisan, but I have to say, that who's going to argue with your motivation? I mean, you saw firsthand that people in your own peer group were struggling. Skyler, do you mind if I ask what college you're going to right now?
I don't. I attend Suffolk County Community College. It's in Selden. It's in Selden. It's about 15 minutes from where I live. And it's a great opportunity to speak and connect with people. There are about 14,000 students on my campus, and I'm able to talk to a lot of them from all over the island, and they're all facing similar issues.
Totally. So you are in college. I get it. You're a sophomore? Freshman?
Yes.
Sophomore. That's so exciting. I also just want to validate what you said. Having taught briefly at Stony Brook and commuting out to your home and your community, I can tell you as a former professor, one of the things that teachers talked about all the time was that their students could barely, concentrate in class because they were working full-time jobs or two jobs. They were commuting long hours. They had children, they were living in their cars. They were hungry. I mean, and this is a public university, this isn't a private expensive. I mean, it's expensive for anyone who, is a working person or middle class, but it's not the most expensive. And these kids were, and we talked about actually what it does if kids can't afford books and have to read the assignment or the classics, as my students were doing, some of them off of their phones. They couldn't afford the textbooks. So it's powerful. And I know that what you're saying is real, and it's especially ironic because Long Island is seen as a middle class or upper middle class community. It's not. It's a suburban community. So if we're seeing these kinds of problems in a suburb, in a middle class suburb, they're everywhere in America, right? Is that your judgment or your assessment as well, or?
Absolutely. Long Island is often touted, like you said, as the middle to upper middle class suburb of New York. And the thing is that these kids who are being told from across the country, oh, you're upper middle class, you're not facing the same issues as someone somewhere else in the country, are struggling to eat. I had someone in one of my classes who I tried to get lunch with him afterwards, and he went, oh, I left my wallet at home. And it dawned on me that I'd never seen him eat at school. So I bought him lunch, and I bought him lunch for a couple days in a row. But the thing is that when we have students that are struggling to eat every day, that don't even feel comfortable expressing the fact that they don't have enough money to buy food, it's an issue. And if we're seeing it on Long Island, it is going to be seen across the country.
Absolutely. Absolutely. No question. I mean, I was shocked from what I was hearing and seeing. And actually, I mean, it goes deeper than that. I mean, there are issues. I'm not going to name the university, but female students who are trying to pay tuition. And now I've heard about this from students, female students, and maybe male students too. I've only heard from female students, not just at universities that are public universities, but at private universities too. They're on sugar daddy sites or on like webcam sites because not because they want to do that work, but because they are absolutely desperate to pay tuition, to get that degree, to have a better life, that only that degree comes with. And they literally cannot think of, or there aren't other options that allow them to, earn revenue and pay tuition. It's absolutely shocking. I did not believe such a thing existed. And then I understood that it was in two different student communities that I was aware of. And these are eyewitness accounts. So totally, that's something that people will resonate to. We at Daily Cloud have been looking at the different presidential candidates' agendas, and student debt is big on some of them. I think Bernie Sanders' plan to forgive a lot of student debt is one reason he's so popular. I looked at your issues on your really excellent website, and something that you spell out in a lot of detail, and I have to give you credit for a very clear, excellent website, is student debt. Do you want to talk about how you're going to concretely help students if you are successful in your bid to become a state senator?
Yeah, absolutely. So there's a lot that we need to do here. So first of all, before I go into student debt specifically, I want to talk about some of what we want to do on college campuses. One thing that we're seeing right now, especially for female and non-gender conforming students, are lack of availability of menstrual products. So I'm seeing a lot of students who cannot afford tampons or menstrual pads right now, and it's a serious issue for them. I believe that 1 in 5 women in the United States do not have monthly access to these products. So under my plan, we're actually going to make those free on all public colleges, for all public colleges in New York. They'll be required to stock them, they'll be required to provide them at no cost, as well as restock them during routine maintenance to make sure that it's available to all students. That, for a lot of people, that doesn't sound like a big thing, but it could save. Yes, absolutely. Especially when we're dealing with issues such as toxic shock syndrome, we could save some lives there, and we can make someone's life just a bit easier there. Now,
can I just jump in? I'm so happy to hear this, Skyler. I mean, this is really impressive, and it actually takes a lot of courage for you to bring this up, but you're absolutely right to bring this up. It is a huge, not just a public health issue, but an education issue, huge employment issue. You're 100% right. We covered an assemblywoman from a lower income district in California who introduced a tampon tax bill because women could not afford and girls could not afford menstrual care products. And this was so successful a bill that it got copied in 16 states and in the EU. And the studies are in, I'm just validating what you're saying. And I want to give you credit. Teenager or no teenager, you are the first politician who is a man, I assume a man, who is, addressing this in public. And you deserve a heck of a lot of credit for that. And it's a huge public health issue because women they often stay home instead of going out in public because, they're menstruating and they don't have menstrual care products and they are horribly expensive. So thank you so much, Skyler. Anyway, go ahead. I didn't mean to presume on gender identification, but however one identifies, it is impressive to hear people bring this up in public.
Yeah, absolutely. And I do identify as a male, but I want to make sure that we're talking about this across any gender spectrum.
Absolutely.
Because I want to make sure we're fighting the pink tax right now. We have passed legislation in New York more recently to start combating the pink tax. However, we're not doing enough.
Define that for people who are not familiar with that term.
Sure. So the pink tax generally refers to the fact that products that are aimed at women are more expensive than products that are aimed at males. That includes everything from deodorants to toothbrushes to toothpaste to menstrual products. If they've done studies where they've taken the same basic product and one's been in pink, which is where the name comes from, aimed at women, one's been in blue, aimed at men, and the pink one is more expensive, creating a pink tax here.
Wow. How did you get to be so right on about gender issues?
So I've always just tried to pay attention to what was happening throughout the United States and throughout New York State. So this is something that's always been a passion of mine. I still remember being 11 years old. I was in my 6th grade art class and I was arguing that a woman had the right to choose. I don't know what caused that conversation. I can't remember now, but all I know is that it was a major topic of discussion for me.
I love it. And did you grow up, were your parents or grandparents especially kind of egalitarian or, more socially just than most or more aware of these things than most?
Yes, so I did have the privilege of growing up in a very aware family. I'm running as a Democrat, and my entire family has been very liberal. My one of my grandmother's major issues is a woman's right to choose. She will not support candidates who do not support that because she thinks she finds it as a base foundation for policy. And I've seen that throughout my entire family, so it allowed me to have these discussions openly. I came from a family that had no issue discussing this, so it wouldn't be uncommon for us to bring this up at the dinner table or on a vacation to talk about this and other social issues, and it really helped to raise my awareness of what was happening.
That's so awesome. So do you have brothers and sisters?
I do. I have a little brother, yes.
Yes. Are you going to make him work on your campaign?
I didn't need to make him do anything. He asked to work on my campaign from day one. As soon as I told him he was running, he went, "Great, what can I do to help?"
So awesome.
He's 16 years old. He's 16 years old, and he'll get home from school and go, "All right, I'm going to open our voter system now and call voters to tell them about you." I don't need to ask him to do it. He just wants to do it. So he's joined my team as a really valuable asset to helping with the campaign. He'll go to events with me. He'll take notes. He'll do whatever he can because he wants to see someone representing our generation succeed.
That's wonderful. I'm so happy to hear it. So tell me about some of your other policies and why you chose them. We've heard about your stances on the pink tax, on menstrual care products, and I love the idea of distributing them on college campuses. Love it. I have heard about your plans to make college more affordable, or at least that sounds like it's part of your platform from your website. But tell me about some of the other things that you're for and some of the details.
Right. So there's a few policies that I'm really proud of. So part of what my campaign prides itself on is not just going, well, we want this to happen. We don't just say we want affordable housing. We actually release a plan for affordable housing.
I love that. I mean, I have to say that was notable because we slogged through the platforms of all the presidential candidates. It was striking how few details there were. And you really do provide the nuts and bolts of your plan. But go ahead, Skyler.
Yes. So when it comes to housing, right now we're seeing an issue with vacant homes in New York. People are having their homes foreclosed. Those homes stand vacant for years. They're taken by the bank. They're taken by the state. And eventually, those homes become structurally unsound and are demolished. While they're doing that, the two major counties of New York have at least 4,000 homeless people on Long Island. So can you imagine what it would be like to be living on the streets and to walk past a home that's being marked for demolition after being empty for 7 years?
Mm.
It's illogical. It doesn't make any rational sense in really, if no matter really how you look at it from, because there's no one living in these homes. It drives down the property value of the entire neighborhood, and then you have homeless people who would kill for shelter like that. So we have 101,000 vacant homes throughout New York on last estimation. So what we're going to do is we're actually going to expedite the process about once a home is already marked for foreclosure, once there's no other assistance that we can give on that end, we're going to take those homes and we're going to mark them for affordable housing lotteries and for homeless lotteries that will then be re-given to citizens throughout New York State. We can get people in these homes that we can get people that are fixing these homes. We can get people that are even paying $500 a year into the system that could now afford to stay on Long Island that wouldn't have been able to otherwise. We'll get a lot of people. There's a lot of working homeless people, and that's kind of overlooked by the media a lot. They portray homeless people as almost its own class. That's
Right.
that's not the reality. There's a lot of homeless people that go to work and then go live on the street because they can't afford homes.
Or
This
in their cars, as we found. Yeah.
Yes, exactly. And those people are overlooked even further because when you think of homeless, you think of someone setting up tents on the street, not sleeping in their car on the side of the road.
Right,
So
right.
what we're going to do is we're going to provide them with homes in this way, and they'll make a huge difference to New York's economy, and it'll protect them. Can you imagine what it would do for someone if instead of having to worry about where they're going to sleep at the end of the day, they know they're coming home to warm shelter? It could change a lot of lives and save a lot of lives.
Okay, now you're going to make me cry. I mean, that's a really beautiful plan, and there are a lot of advantages. Won't the banks oppose? I mean, a critic could say, well, that's eminent domain. You're confiscating property that belongs to the bank. What would you
Right.
say to that?
So, from all estimations, the banks will be relieved about this. What's happening right now is that these homes are sitting in bank property until they become no longer viable to stand. They're getting no money from these homes. The other thing is too is that if the bank if the bank has mortgages out to other homes in the neighborhood, these homes are not selling now.
That's true. It depresses the value. That's
That's
right.
So I can tell you in the towns around here, it's a major issue because people have tried to sell their homes and they end up settling for $50,000-$60,000 less than what the homes are actually worth because that home has been sitting vacant for the last 4 or 5 years. These homes then become structurally unsound and end up getting demolished. If we do this, we can work out a deal with the banks that will give some money to the banks and then the rest will come into New York State. So the banks make money off of this. They save the homes and they're eventually able to get more people in the homes. It makes sense for everyone involved.
It certainly makes sense in terms of revitalizing communities. I guess my last question there is there's going to be such a mad desire to get into those homes, just like there is here in New York. That's public housing in the Bronx where we moved recently. And there's huge lotteries and long, long lines to get into affordable housing and a big push in the Bronx to build more affordable housing for that reason. How will you choose, which lucky homeless people get to move into those houses and rehabilitate them?
So I have signed the homes guarantee, which is a series of legislation that would really benefit this problem overall. So the plan that I'm putting forward isn't meant to single-handedly end the homelessness crisis because I don't think that that's realistic. I want to if I could get every person who's homeless into a house next year, I would, and I would love if this plan did that. But there's always the possibility that we're going to end up getting backed up with people that need these homes. So part of what we want to do is move away from, first of all, single-family units for a lot of these homes. So if we have a neighborhood that's about to be rezoned, we can get that zoned for multiple family units and get more people in. The other thing is that I want to work to get more sewers installed in our area because if you do that, it changes the zoning issues, and you can actually build more multiple family units.
That's really smart with the population that there is on Long Island. There's a need for multifamily houses and not just that post-war, little single family house on an acre or half an acre that it's zoned for now. Very smart. Can I share with you, because I'm passionate about sharing best practices that we see here at Daily Clout. Portland, Oregon has a really good zoning thing of allowing, what do they call it? Like little structures in the backyard, like in-law apartments, or a lot of people have tiny homes in their backyard. And that has been an absolute boon for people who want to Airbnb and get some income, people who want, grandma to live nearby and she, can't afford her own rent, or, multi-generation households. And it is easy on the landscape. It doesn't provide, it doesn't require a lot of infrastructure to allow that. It's working out really well. Just wanted to share. Now I'm lobbying you, and you're not even in office yet.
No, I appreciate that. My friend Amanda Sieb is running for Congress in that area, and she actually was speaking about something similar to that, because she's a disability rights advocate. And it of course is really important to her that we see these homelessness and housing crises solved throughout the country, because it's affecting disabled people as well. So she was very informed of this issue.
Oh, fantastic! Is she another teenager running for Congress?
So I believe that Amanda is in her. I believe Amanda is in her 30s. She has a son that is a little bit younger. That is a little bit younger than me. She's running for Congress in Oregon.
Awesome! Wow, you're plugged in. Okay, so that's a really cool plan. So let's talk about your campaign. I think people who want to drill deep into your platform, in addition to what you've already spelled out, can go to your website. It's super, super clear. It costs money to run a campaign and to build a beautiful website like yours. You're processing donations through Act Blue. You're highly media trained, whether you did that yourself and you're just like really good on camera, or whether you had media training. How are you raising the money, and how, do you have like big Democrats behind you saying this is an amazing young man, let's ease his way?
Right. So we're relying entirely on grassroots funding. We're not taking donations from billionaires. We're not taking donations from corporations. We're not taking donations from special interests. Our money is coming from concerned citizens. We've received about 150 unique donations over the past couple of months.
That's
yes.
amazing, Skyler.
Yeah. Thank you. I appreciate it. And they're coming from college students who don't know how they're going to buy their books, but they're looking at this campaign going, this is the first campaign I've ever seen that's representing us. Let's chip in $10. They're calling their friends and asking them if they can donate another 10. We're getting money from senior citizens who are trying to figure out how they're going to stay on the island in the next 5 years and see hope in this campaign. People living on disability that just want to see a change here. And that's really who we're fundraising from. We're not relying on big donors in the end.
So using those donations was how you managed to build such a lovely website and have, all the things that go along with, campaign literature and a lawyer and all the things you have to do to comply with running for state senate?
It was, yes. So we used the funds that we've had, and we're smart about using them too. I'm blessed to have a team of grassroots volunteers that pretty much help us build everything. So whether it be media relations or managing the entire campaign, they're all working just because they want to see a better future here. We have lawyers that have contacted us and are working with us on staff to try to make sure that we're getting along with compliance. We have consultants in DC that reached out through Instagram and said, hey, listen, we want to work for you pro bono. We want to see you win here.
Oh my God, that's amazing.
Yes.
And this is the only time your age is relevant, like no disrespect, because as I said, I think 19-year-olds can run the world, no problem. But given your lack of, I would just say just chronological political experience, how do you assess, oh, there's this consultant calling me from Washington, good guy or bad guy, good girl or bad girl? How do you do that?
So there's a couple things here, especially when it comes down to if you're asking about how we can trust people too. So that's important. First of all, the people that we've hired on the team, the people that have joined our team, are from all different walks of life. So my campaign manager was a field director on our congressman's campaign before the legislator flipped red back in 2010. We have people that have worked on campaigns for years. We've had people that have been plugged into this for years, as well as college students, as well as high school students that are working.
So that's seasoned political people around you to advise you. I'm glad of that, because that is literally the only downside of being your age, is just, lack of experience in the field. Right. And if you've got these grizzled political types around you, you can have the benefit of their experience, but the benefit of your enthusiasm and your good ideas.
So
You,
what we've been
yeah,
doing is that anytime anyone reaches out to us and wants to help, we do vet them. We
I
we
see.
kind of comb through social media, we comb through anything that we need to find if there's a conflict of interest. Because we did have someone at the very beginning of the campaign that tried to take advantage of us and tried to basically extort the campaign out of money, and then immediately started doing it to one of my opponents.
Oh
Uh,
no.
yes, it's an issue that it's not just unique to us, but we were able to recognize it and able to handle it accordingly. So we were able to kind of look through people's intentions and see what their see their past, see who they've connected to. We also are able to reach out to a lot of mutual connections and see what does this person
Right.
usually do? Is this their first
Yeah,
time
it's a
reaching
small
out?
community, I guess, on Long Island, apart from the Washington
Right.
insider. So, yeah.
So politics we found is relatively small anyway.
Mm.
So the thing is that I've established connections to congressional and United States Senate candidates around the entire nation.
Oh,
Uh,
wow.
so just the other day, the mayor of San Juan in Puerto Rico retweeted us and started following the campaign. So we've managed to establish connections around the country that we're able to reach out to if someone from their area is contacting us.
You need like a documentarian following you around, right? I hope that is the next step, and following you into the state senate. If you are successful, I'm trying to be nonpartisan. Well, Skyler, so people watching this are thinking that is so incredibly cool and doable, possibly. What are like the simple baby steps for someone else who wants to run for state senate? Like, how did you learn and what did you do? Just if you could give us like a little summary.
So I'm so glad that you asked that because just like you were saying about a documentarian following us around, that almost never happens. A lot of times people run for office, they're successful, and when they're asked about what they did, they're very vague on everything, and it doesn't help people in the
Oh,
future. So the thing that I actually just said about the fact that politics is small, that's one of the first things that you actually need to recognize when you get into this. A lot of times, young people that want to get involved in politics are kind of awestruck by candidates, by politicians, and the first thing you need to do is recognize that they're people. I can tell you the first time that I spoke to a congressional candidate, I was putting them on a pedestal, and then I realized that they had their flaws and they were just someone trying to figure out what they were doing too. So if anyone wants to run, the first thing I would suggest is finding a local campaign in your area, whether it be for council, for Congress, for state senate, and working on that campaign, even just for 6 months, even just until the general election, and seeing what it's like. Because doing that, you'll be able to meet a lot of people, you'll be able to see the inner workings, you'll be able to kind of figure out how everything works and put that towards your own campaign. When I joined the campaign I was on last year, I had no idea I was going to be running. It was partially at the encouragement of the candidate and her family that I did decide to run. So I met a lot of wonderful people that were able to then lift me up into
Gotcha. I
yes.
see. Really good advice. And then what about the basics of, the legal filing is so tricky. I looked into what it takes to run for Senate. So complicated. How do you like get started? Do you start with a lawyer? Do you start with a political action committee? I mean, what are the ingredients people need after they've volunteered the way you described?
So I can tell you that the first thing that I did when I decided to run, and of course there's a lot of compliance involved in it. It's not simple. We needed to figure out which forms we needed to file, how to set up a committee to the bank, how to file with New York State. So we did a couple of things. I reached out to people who had done it previously. So candidate's family who had set up her action committee, I reached out to them and he had written up a guide about how to file.
Oh,
It
we need that. We need that guy. We need to
yeah,
post online. Oh, fantastic.
yes. So there's been similar guides made, but it was actually local to us, and it worked so well that I got the forms from New York State, and I was able to then send them into New York. I also found organizations such as Run for Something, which actually
Hmm.
endorsed the campaign this morning.
Oh,
Uh,
congratulations!
I appreciate
Congratulations,
it.
Carly. That's awesome.
So they actually have an entire guide about how to run for office, including links to filing laws around the country.
Oh,
So
fantastic. People have done the work already. That's
yes.
wonderful.
Yes, there's always people that have done it for you. So what you want to do is you want to reach out to anyone who has pretty much ever stepped foot on a campaign and go, "What's your advice here? How do you think I should go about this?" And they'll always have information that kind of add to a kind of collective a collective guide for you that you can then use to build your campaign.
That's fantastic recommendation, Skylar. And the last thing, a lot of people watching this, and I'm going to say especially young women, are going to ask me, I know, as a follow up question is, how do you get the confidence to feel like I can do this. I can talk to all these different people. I can get in front of the media and I can govern. Where does that come from?
Right. So it's not a straight line here. It's not a linear path. I have nights where I'm kind of dealing with imposter syndrome, where I'll go from an event where I'm speaking in front of 100 people or socializing with people who've been involved with this for 50 years. I get home and I'm like, what am I doing? I can't do this. Who am I to run? That happens to everybody. I have never met a single candidate who has said, I feel 100% all the time. And that's something that's going to recognize. When you do this, you're going to have your ups and you're going to have your downs. What you need to recognize if you want to have confidence in this is that literally anybody can run. That
Mm.
it doesn't matter where you're from, it doesn't matter your background, you have the ability to run. I'm a 19-year-old college student from the suburbs of New York, and I'm running for New York State Senate because I want to make a difference here. That's really where my confidence comes from. I'm looking at the policies I'm putting forward, and I know the difference they're going to make to so many people. I know that if we get adequate health care in New York State, I know that if we get adequate housing, we're going to save lives, and that really builds up my confidence because I know I'm doing the right thing. It's not going to be easy, but it is possible to get your confidence built up there, and it really comes from within. It comes from, I hope it doesn't sound cheesy, but it really comes from what you know you can accomplish too.
Oh, no, it doesn't sound cheesy at all. It sounds totally inspiring. I'm going to send this video to a lot of 19-year-olds I know, and other people who think, whatever age, retirees, people, a lot of people in our community think, well, I work on a factory floor. I can't run for office. It's the furthest thing from the truth, right? I mean, we can all run for office and we can all win. And probably, our breadth of experience on a factory floor as a 19-year-old or college student or whatever adds to what we bring to
Absolutely.
govern. So let me now ask you, you're being so generous with your time. Can I have a minute or two more?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I blocked off a decent period of time to
Oh,
be able to talk to you without interruption. Yes.
thank you. So what's your trajectory now? How does it unfold? What are the milestones you need to meet or surpass? And how are you going to go about like getting people to vote for you? And the second follow-up question is, after you serve, presuming you get elected, does that mean you need to leave college? And I guess the last question is, what do you want to be after this is all over, when you're like 25 and no longer in state Senate?
Right.
But so those are three different questions. So why don't you take them, the first one first,
All right.
like what are the milestones?
All right, absolutely. So we have our primary election on June 23rd. And one thing that my age has really helped us with is name recognition. I
Hmm.
can't tell you how many people I call that live miles and miles to the east of me, and they go, "Oh, you're that college student from Brookhaven running in this election." They get really excited about it because people see hope in the campaign. I was at an event in a different township. If most people watching wouldn't have ever seen my district before, it's large. It spans pretty much half of Long Island. It's a giant district. It has 236,000 registered voters in it. It is not a small place. If anyone knows Montauk Point or the Hamptons, it covers all of that, and those are on two different shores of the island.
Mhm.
So there's a big geographical distance for the island, but I spent a lot of time in every section. So I've gone out to municipalities where I've spoken to the local democratic committees, and they've just wanted to hear what I've had to say, and they've been impressed by someone young running. I make sure that I'm paying attention to local issues and kind of standing up where I can for what's right, and I want to do that with or without the campaign. So I'm actually gonna tie in my first answer to my last answer here for where I want to see myself, and then I'll go to the second one. So the thing that you asked me was, where do I see myself if I'm no longer state senate at 25? In the end, it doesn't really matter as long as I did good here.
Oh,
I'm doing this campaign not for my own political vanity. I'm not doing this because I think that if I get elected, it's going to be some spotlight over my head. So while I was running, because I'm paying so much attention to local issues, I found out that the Shinnecock Native American tribe is currently having their ancient burial ground torn up to build a mansion. Yeah,
oh my God.
I made a lot of friends out there because of the campaign, and one of them, who's a Native American, she's a member of the Shinnecock tribe, is literally standing out there with a sign that says "Ancient Indian Burial Ground" to try to get the attention of the locals. So what I've done is I've gone out there a lot. I've spent a lot of time standing in solidarity with them to try to stop this from happening. So even if I'm not elected, I'm going to be back out there next year trying to figure out how to get an injunction issued for that land, so that way they're not literally tearing up remains and artifacts from the ground. So what we need to do if we want to win this primary is just make sure that we're talking to people. And my campaign is putting policy first. We're not just pandering to voters. Like we've talked about a lot in this interview.
Mhm.
I'm not just saying to you I want affordable housing. I've told you how I'm going to do it, and that appeals to a lot of people. So really, what we need to do is just make sure we talk to as many people as possible through town halls, through online engagement, through the news, through any medium that we have. And I think that that's really important. So
And so your goal is to win the primary, and then who will you be up against?
right. So after the incumbent of 44 years retired, the even though the Democratic Party is having a primary, the Democratic Party has announced that they are staying neutral in our primary. They pretty much said, we're not endorsing a candidate. All the candidates are great. Let the voters decide, and we'll support whoever wins. The Republican Party on the island is not doing the same thing. They have picked my assemblyman actually to run for the state Senate seat. He's been around for a little while
Here's
now.
Skyler.
It's an interesting race now because, like I said, I'm living in his district and I'm seeing his name get put up, and if I win this primary, I'll be his eventual opponent. Like I said, he's been around for a long time, but I don't think he's the right fit for the state senate because right now he's relying on a lot of fear mongering when it comes to pretty much every issue to try to win. He's pretty much pushing I'm trying to run a campaign that's just talking about what we're going to do in the future. His campaign is Democrats are messing up anything, vote them all out. And that's not how you want to represent a district. So we'll have if I win the primary in June, we'll have a few months until November, in which case we're going to be traveling the district even more, talking to every voter, no matter if they're Democrat, Republican, Independent, Green Party. I don't really care. I won't just want them to know I exist because I'm going to be the representative. I'm not going to be a representative for the Democrats. I'm not going to be a representative for the Republicans. I'm a representative of people.
I'm
And
so glad to hear you say that. Democrats always make the mistake of not saying that. That's great. That's great to hear, Skyler. Sorry, go ahead.
no, not at all. I think it's very important because I see a lot of representatives on both sides of the aisle who don't do that, who
Yeah.
spend a lot of their time attacking the opposition party and kind of forget who they were put there by. So I want to make sure to not make the same mistake there.
Awesome. So this is really exciting. And how do you manage your schoolwork? Or have you taken a leave for the campaign duration?
Actually, I right before this interview, I was finishing my second class of the day. I drove home, got myself set up, and sat in front of my computer while still having my school email open. So it's an interesting balance, but it's actually an enjoyable balance, partially because every one of my professors knows what I'm doing.
Yeah, for sure.
Yes. I got a text from a friend of mine in another class who went, "Hey, just to let you know, your professor's currently telling us all to go vote for you."
That is awesome.
I was very happy to hear that. I really liked that professor anyway, but apparently he was just randomly stopping in class and going, "Hey, did you guys hear about the college student that's running for New York State Senate?" And I was getting a lot of name recognition that way too. So
Awesome.
so what I've done is I've tied my schoolwork into my political campaign. If I see something at school that's unjust, I bring it up in the campaign. And if I see something interesting in the campaign, I bring it up in school. And it's worked really well.
Super
Yes.
smart. However, if you get elected, you'll need to take a leave from your studies, right? You can't do both.
So what's actually interesting is that I can't predict what's going to happen in Albany in the end. There are a lot of elected officials who will work outside jobs or run companies or do consulting work at the same time that they're an elected official. If I'm elected, I'm at least going to be taking a year off to scope out Albany to figure out what's going on there because I'm not going to be in my first term as a New York State legislator as well as going, okay, wait, but I'm starting my first school, I'm starting my first semester at a new school.
Right.
So I would make sure I take a break, and I would make sure that to do what I can to finish my education at some point. If it means finishing a bachelor's degree in 6 or 7 years instead of 4 years, I'm fine with that. If it means attending school online to finish the degree, I'm fine with that, as long as I'm doing the right thing for the people of the district.
Love it. It's a beautiful summary, beautiful note to end on. Are there any final words, and what are some actions? Did we skip the second question?
So I think the third question that I didn't come back to was just that it was just again that no matter what happens with my political future, I want to make sure that I do the right thing for the district, for New York, and for the country.
Mm-hmm.
And that I want to make sure that we're putting actions forward to fight climate change, to end the housing crisis, and just to make people's lives better generally. So and that's what I want to recognize here, that it's not just about this election. It's about the future of our country, pretty much.
Ringing words, stirring words, and I'm sure people watching are going to be so profoundly moved and encouraged and inspired, whatever their background, whatever their political, orientation. It's great to see someone start young and passionately caring about your community and the country and the world. So thank you, Skyler Johnson. Any final recommendations for people watching? How can they help you? Like if they're your possible constituent, how do they help? And if they live outside of your district, how do they help?
Yeah, so absolutely. So the first thing I want to say is that this campaign is one that's really about hope. We're trying to get people to think across the country. We've actually received a lot of $10, $15, $20 donations from everywhere in the United States, from New York to Alaska to California, from people that see this campaign somewhere online and go, I wish my representatives would do the same thing. So what we want to do is make sure that if I'm elected here, that the policies that we're trying to push here are able to cascade throughout the country. If we pass healthcare bills here, it will be used as an example in other states and on a federal level, and we'll be able to get it passed throughout the country. So if
how can people help? By donating to you?
So there's a couple things here. If you have money to give, even if it's $5, then you're able to donate on my website. That's much appreciated. But if you can't, or if you don't feel comfortable doing that, just share the campaign online, or reach out to us and we'll show you how to make phone calls into our district, so that way we can tell more people about the campaign. Anything that you can do is very much appreciated. Doesn't matter if it's monetary, if it's physical, or if it's online. It all helps, and it all makes a major difference in this campaign.
And what's the website?
My website is Skyler. It's SKYLER for Senate.com.
Fantastic. Well, Skyler, I wish you, nonpartisanly speaking, the absolute best of luck. I feel super inspired. I'm thinking of people I'm going to now badger to run for office themselves. And you've made a world of difference already in showing people that it can be done and how it's done. And we're really happy to have you. Thank you for giving time to Daily Cloud. And everyone, we can talk about this offline. Skyler Johnson, running for State Senate of New York. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Naomi. Have a great day.
Bye-bye. Okay, we're done.